Recording is on.
All right, so today is February 14, 2021, and we're going to continue our discussion on the Desiderata Extinctionati. Our agenda, we have 3 today. First one is how to free the chimp from soft incarceration. The second is discuss the perspective, social relations, culture of hunter-gatherers, traditional societies, and bridge the gap to the techno-fascist feudal perspective and silver surfing.
That's vast.
Yeah, different topics. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was also one from Gary about really bad conspiracy theories and how, what conspiracy theories really are. Yeah, that's kind of a vast subject. What do people want to tackle?
Well, I kind of can't remember where we had left the last time, the chimp place, and the other one is about the other topic is about
just bridging the gap to hunter-gatherer society, because we live in a tech society. But yeah, what we left last time was with the exercise. I asked you guys to try an exercise of just try to do something novel.
Oh yes, that's
when
what
you
I was going to tell you. Yeah, I've done that.
Did you do it?
Yeah, I did it because I had time, and I must confess to everybody in the group that every emotion that I went through, that I tried to relate, this is related to the ape simiesque. I couldn't find anything reptilian or mammalian, and it was all going back to so I'm a monkey. I just tell you, every emotion or everything that I just did, exactly the connection, and I couldn't find maybe it was the week that was in it, but yeah, it was all to do with.
Well, that was connecting your emotions to. That was connecting your emotions to a certain layer of the brain. But why did you associate them with the primate brain?
Because I noted them first, the emotions with what they were, and then I tried to see where they were, what was behind them and what they were related to, connected to, and they were all coming to what I had gathered you were saying about the ape or the simian part of the brain, or the list of the few. I didn't do it every day. I did it only a few times. And I couldn't find the connections with anything reptilian or mammalian, or maybe fish because of sometimes hunger and things like that, but that was not emotions, it was more feelings. So that's my experience. I must, it was interesting to do that.
So maybe, what kind of things did you associate with a primate brain?
I don't have, but it was, the emotions were a lot to do with the emotion, like the lack. I had written that on a piece of paper that I've left somewhere because I don't know what I'm doing with myself at the moment. But a lot of them had to do with conviviality, touch, being with other, associating, play, interact. All these that I mean, it was like I would write the emotion as the feeling would come. So I would be saying like I feel I don't know. I must go and find this list. Start on you, and I might get it. Where did I put it? But I did little arrows from everywhere, and I tried to see, was that generated from parts of our brain that were mammalian? No. Parts that were reptilian with reaction to danger, fear, etc. No. And it most of it was part of things that have to do with the group and the, I don't know, this, and there was play, and I was feeling playful. I was feeling, the I don't know. Oh, it's very difficult to talk about so personal things like this. With, it's true that emotions aren't they? They're very intimate things. But I did it honestly, and I'm going to do it again. I had a little piece of paper and I had written all the things every day, like, and I had done arrows, and I've just lost it because there's been a lot of upheaval in my house the last few days. So there you go.
So the idea is to get you to not personalize it. It's basically because it's not really your feelings, right? It's just a part of your brain. it's a part of your brain. So it's interesting. Why do you personalize? Why do you think it's personal?
No. But because it's something. It's a thing that I was observing and that I was experiencing. When I was experiencing an emotion, I was writing down the name of the emotion, and then I was trying to relate it to what part of my brain was this kind of corresponding with, you know. So I took a stance of an observer. I was not, you know, I was observing what that was. That's a bit like it was.
But didn't you try and own it? If you were embarrassed by it, you must have identified with it enough to feel guilty or feel like you own it or identify with it, right?
No, because I'm spending most of my time at the moment trying not to feel guilty, so I definitely didn't try to do that. Well, so, you know, no, it was like, oh, wow, I was trying to be detached like an observer in a lab looking at an experiment, and I was the subject.
Yeah.
That's why I found that a lot of those emotions that I was experiencing or feelings were definitely not connected to mammalian layers that you describe as being to do with the heart and just little things like that, and family and all that. It wasn't. There might have been some violence at some stage, but I was wondering where that was coming from.
Although that's almost certainly reptilian brain, right?
Yeah, but that's so unconscious, isn't it? It's just
yeah. Did you notice who was watching? Did you get any sense of the self that was actually observing these things while they were going on?
Well, I'm kind of used to do a bit of introspection. So I've been doing emotional literacy for a little while, not like you said. So I'm kind of, I don't know, I was kind of just putting a name on some kind of thing. And at a moment of the day, let's say, I would sit down and I would think, okay, when I was doing that, what did I feel? You know, I don't know if I was, I don't know, anything I was doing. And I've tried to say, what did I feel then? And then I would put the name of that emotion. And then after that, I would do your exercise, what you suggested, to try to associate that with that's how I was doing it. Maybe I was doing it wrong, I don't know. But
anyways, good. But so it's interesting because if you're thinking back and writing down, that's what you were doing, right?
Yeah, I was picking a moment,
and
how was I feeling then? So, and I just, oh yeah, that would be, and behind that there was a few other ones. So I put the few other ones. It would be like a little mixture of different emotions, put a name on them, and then I tried to think rationally or whatever, you know, with what you told us about your theory of the layered brain. So I was thinking, where that would come from, would that be a reaction of the reptilian or the mammalian? You know, and I kind of did that association. And at the end of the week, I looked at only a few. I didn't do many. I just did a few exercises, and that's what I was reporting to you. I was saying, oh, that's funny, because there was most connections were to do with that part of the brain, and that's maybe just a week like that was different. I don't know.
Yeah, what I found, what I was honing in on is the fact that all of this is an exercise in your alien cortex, right? You are rationalizing and thinking.
Yeah, I know.
And then writing down. So it's your alien reporting on the emotions that you felt in the past.
Yes, of course. But you mentioned that the last time, that anyway, that sort of exercise is an alien cortex thing. But
yeah, it is. It is. That's exactly what it's for. So you can objectivize the rest of
but is that, would you think that is part of maîtriser, how do you say that in English? Control your alien cortex, or at least master it, to use it in that way?
Yeah, I mean, alien cortex definitely wants to get control of it. So the fact that you said, it's kind of, you felt self-conscious about talking about what the other layers were doing and feeling and stuff, is that pure alien cortex. Your alien cortex is identifying with those other layers, personalizing them, and then basically feeling guilty or feeling ashamed or feeling embarrassed about them. That's pure alien cortex. But I just found that kind of interesting. That what I'd suggest trying next is to try and see it in the moment. So as you do it, then observe. So it takes quite an effort of memory to remember to do it. But if you say talking to somebody, or a good way to do it is if you catch yourself feeling a strong emotion or something like that. Yeah. And then just think, in the moment, I wonder what part of the brain is doing that. That's, if you can catch yourself at the time when it's actually running, that's more valuable than looking back in the past.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
There's not a lot of use for historical revisionism, right? Because the moment is past. Right?
Did anybody else try to do this? Did anybody else try to?
I forgot about it, but I did have an event at work or an incident, and I kind of did it in the same manner that you did, which was after the fact examination. I have been rewatching the videos that Lord Hugh has, and he there was the video on layered brain and this technique of analyzing, and where he played a clip of two people kind of debating and matching what one person was saying and what they were targeting, which part of the layered brain of the other person. So now I realize that it's probably just, again, my alien cortex examining, because I did feel a sense of shame at how I reacted to something that happened at work, but I was trying to match up what I was saying and what part of the layered brain it was coming from. So now I'll just do something that I will try to observe in the moment, because I'm going to have a subsequent meeting with my supervisor, and I'll try to observe the next time as things are happening.
Yeah, in the moment is really the important thing. So that little clip of those two people talking, that's Jordan Peterson and Kathy Graham, is it? Anyway, that little clip is kind of famous or infamous, maybe, and in some ways, I think that was one of the things that really launched Jordan Peterson was that little clip. He became famous, I think, for testifying in court about basically prescribed speech. They were going to pass a law for gender pronouns, and you're forcing people to use the preferred gender pronouns to people in Canada.
Oh, and thanks.
But yeah, Kathy Graham, I think is her name. Yeah. So, and then he got interviewed by Kathy Graham after that, and then the internet just went wild after that little piece. One guy did a video which just described it in superlative terms. Just sometimes there's a glitch in the matrix, kind of, and it was on that little piece. So I think that some people that watched it, they got very upset. They got. I'm not sure if I should have used that piece now, because I think most people got lost in the politics and they didn't do what you were saying. They were just thinking of Jordan Peterson and gender politics and stuff, and that isn't what I was saying at all. But I know at least one person commented on that and said, had the impression that I was using that to diss feminism or Kathy Graham saying, or take the side of Jordan Peterson, which is not what I was trying to do at all. What I was trying to do was to get a highly charged political situation and get people to observe it neutrally. And it failed kind of spectacularly because people couldn't see beyond the politics and identification and stuff, and that's really what the whole exercise is for. So I kind of completely lost what I was trying to do, and that was to try and liberate people from those kind of identity politics and all the issues, which are really these kind of intractable battles between the alien cortex and some kind of, you know, really representing, say, the reptilian brain, or in the case of the woman's part, often a mammalian brain. So they kind of act in cahoots, the alien cortex and the reptilian brain, or the alien cortex and the mammalian brain. And I think the very first step towards transhumanism and not, well, transpersonalism more than transhumanism. Transhumanism is cyborgs and stuff, but in other words, transcending, this politics and gender wars and things like that, is to actually observe and objectify those parts of the brain at the very time they're happening. And if people could just start to see themselves as, hey, that's my mammalian brain talking, and just observe it without interfering in it and changing it, that's the real value of the exercise. And that's getting closer towards a kind of discovery of the observing self. So that's what the whole thing was really all about. But yeah, keep at it. It's well worth it. You see, it's very hard, I think, for people to even identify things like the alien cortex. And so, the 10 bull sequence in Zen, the bull really is your alien cortex. And so the third panel is, actually the fourth panel is seeing the bull. So, Sophie, you sent that thing with who was it, Pink Floyd or something? I can't remember who that's the powerful. Who was it? Oh, you muted.
Was it Cat Stevens?
Yeah, Cat Stevens. Yeah. So he made a clear reference in that the fourth the panel of the 10 bull sequence to seeing the bull, and that really is quite a big step. Is at some point, if you stick with this exercise, at some point you can, especially in a quiet moment, and when you might be talking to somebody, especially if it's a boss or something like that, or if somebody's having an argument, two people are having an argument in front of you, or better still, if you're having an argument with somebody, and if you can suddenly catch a glimpse of yourself and say, you can suddenly see all falls into place. You can see your alien cortex working. You see the other person's alien cortex working. You can see the reptilian brain flaring up. You see this kind of comedy, this kind of zoo of interaction. And yeah, that's a very good place to get.
I found the list that I had. This must not go out the group. Right, I'm going to give you a few names that I've written.
It's not going to go any further than the internet.
We're being recorded,
I know. I write very badly. So I've written lazy, impatient, giddy, fond, blessed, outraged, playful, rage, repugnance, and blessed, and I can't read. I can't even read myself. Sometimes I write so bad. So these were just,
something like repugnant is the fish brain, right? It's basically it's around your spinal cord. Basically, disgust is very deeply seated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rage.
Rage will be the alien cortex. So basically, alien cortex gets into a rage, but it's kind of a dual thing between the reptilian brain and the alien cortex. So the alien cortex can be doing something intellectual, even like playing chess or having an argument, and it will send your reptilian brain into a fight response because it's basically saying it's in combat. And the reptilian brain takes the cue and makes it, gives a flush of adrenaline and basically assumes that it's physical contact.
The rage was not directed at someone. It was at a religious thing. I was outraged and I was enraged afterwards. So it wasn't a physical. That's why I thought, oh well, where's that coming from? And I thought, oh, it's because of control. And control, I was thinking the group, and the group I was thinking monkey, simiesque, ape kind of thing. So maybe
not quite. Basically, because it's religion, it's ideology. So the alien cortex is full of ideology and ideas and simulations and stuff. So confronted with religion, it's a conflicting idea. And so it's what the alien cortex is saying is, this idea doesn't fit with my previous ideas and the rest of my ideology. So it's a reaction of almost frustration. But then that frustration then is triggering your reptilian brain.
Okay.
As if, basically a T-Rex is standing in your path. Because the older layers are evolved, basically the evolution of what the reptilian brain had to deal with stopped somewhere around, scaly lizards in your path. But then it didn't really alter all that much as these new evolutionary layers were stacked on top. So then what happens is there's this conflict in, say, the modern world, which is modern is almost synonymous with alien cortex. So the alien cortex world is full of all of these cerebral activities like religion. But it translates into the old lizard world as, there's an attack on you. So you get the alien cortex, which has a sense of ego, and then it might think, I'm a Protestant or have some religious identification. Then you get an attack on this very abstract thing of Protestantism. It's very hard to, put a fork in if you stick it on a table and poke with a stick. But, people have a very clear idea what a Protestant, for example, or some religious affiliation is in the alien cortex. And so when you attack that personhood, that ego, that translates into the reptilian brain as me, the lizard. So each thing has a kind of sense of ego identity. And the lizard is saying, I'm having a personal attack because the lizard didn't have any intellectual apparatus. So any attack on it is translated into something physical. And so that's kind of the way it goes.
Impatience.
So impatience as well is basically, it's going to be the alien cortex because it's frustrated. So it wants control, and it's goal oriented. So most things, all the way down to like the fish brain, were goal oriented in the sense of food or something like that. Trying to get food or sex or something that was, kind of a desire. But if you frustrated, normally these days, you're frustrated with, because you're talking to the bank and the help desk is keeping you on the line and stuff like that. And so it's your alien cortex getting frustrated that it can't get control and can't make headway. It's basically being obstructed. And so then it's can transfer to anger. But yeah, in general, that's where it's coming from. Those things are usual, but it's good then to think about it in these ways and to think, what was the source of that frustration, and then try and figure it out in terms of this kind of world that I'm painting a picture of for you.
Don't you think this type of exercise at the moment, like nearly all of us, I'd say, I don't know, but I presume the whole world is in lockdown and people are mostly self-isolating, or at least having very little social interactions at the moment, and we're a period of a year nearly of adjusting to this. So I was wondering about how does this affect the different parts of our mind, of our brain, this new situation with the COVID, where we are in something that we have never been brought up to experience, and it also kind of, it's even the exercise in the light of lockdown, the lights of being not in a able to join the group like you would join the group normally, or have human interactions and touch and talk and laugh and dance or whatever people do usually. Could that not trigger certain parts of the brain, more, I don't know.
Well, no, it's a complete recipe for psychosis. So traditionally they would put you in solitary confinement.
Yeah.
And the reason, so the very Victorian thing was that they'd put you in solitary confinement with the Bible to basically consider your sins. It was an extreme form of torture because it would just drive you psychotic, especially with the Bible. And that is kind of what it was intended to do. It was really to it's the same thing as I was talking about in the military, where they put you in a double bind. And then that pitting yourself, two parts of yourself against each other, is the essence of psychotic breakdown and ego breakdown. So what the Victorians were really doing in those, and still today in an American prison, if you go against the system and you show an ego or resistance, what they're doing in putting you in solitary confinement is punishing you, but it's deeper than that. It's cruel and unusual punishment because it's meant to drive you psychotic. It's meant to dissolve your ego. So it's making mush out of your brain. But the way it's doing it is pitting all these things against. It's basically you have each one of these layered, parts of your brain that are turned against each other. So what you see is, particularly in, say, American prisons, you have a lot of people cutting themselves and castrating themselves and doing that. It's very common. And the reason is that the alien cortex is being pitted against, say, your reptilian brain. And it's trying to, get control of it. The reptilian brain is like, I need to run, I need to get out of here. And the alien cortex is trying to suppress it. So what they're putting your own head in a cage fight by putting you in solitary confinement. A big mistake to do that to the population at large, because basically people will genuinely go psychotic. And we're talking mild psychotic. It's not a bad thing to do, if you remember what I said about eupsychosis, because you need to break down the ego. We all need to break down the ego, but it needs to be kind of guided, because you can seriously get you into real trouble in mild psychosis. There is just a kind of barking mad psychosis. Not all psychosis is constructive. So, although you need to have a breakdown to have a breakthrough, you can just have a complete dissociative breakdown that is never beneficial and you never really recover from. And that's what happens if people don't have any training, they don't have any direction, they don't have any reason or purpose for being locked up. So, but if you have some spiritual goal or something like transcendence or enlightenment, then it's very beneficial, and that's why monks went into cells and monasteries and sat for hours looking at a wall. If you went into an ashram, and still today you can go to an ashram where they'll put you in front of a wall, and you just basically meditate on a koan. It's designed to make you go nuts. But in the eupsychotic way, it breaks down your ego, so your ego can't find any association. And that's pretty much what I'm giving you with this exercise. It really is going to make you psychotic. If there's any like psychiatrist or somebody watching this, they might go, shit, this guy is teaching these people really dangerous shit, because they know what I'm doing. And that's basically causing, if you sit and you dissociate that badly that you're sitting and talking to somebody and you're starting to think, and hey, look at that guy, he's just talking about himself all the time, he's completely full of himself. I can see he's talking from his primate brain, he's thinking in terms of status. And then a little kid walks up and like pokes fun at him, and you can just see, oh, look, I see the primate brain. It's very enlightening to start off with, but after a while, I'll warn you in advance that basically you get to a place where autistic people get to, and psychotic people, people with bipolar disorder, they get an undue sense of awareness. So basically, some of the text on, say, schizophrenia will say that basically schizophrenics are people that see too much. So I'm giving you the tools so you can see more. It's kind of a mind-expanding experience. But what in Western psychology, we've lost the tradition, the shamanistic tradition of people transcending themselves. So the idea is that you're just an ego, and your ego slots nicely into some fucking workstation in this dystopia that we have, or otherwise it slots into some military position or somewhere in the hierarchy. And so psychiatrists and the Western psychiatric tradition has got to a point where they pull you back from that sense of awareness, and then just dull you down so that you can't, you just don't have enough energy, you don't have enough spare capacity for any kind of self-introspection or any kind of observation. So they just stop you seeing. So in other words, it's like what they're trying to do in the Zen traditions and the esoteric traditions are open your eyes. And then, what happens today is people's eyes get a little bit open. They go, oh, my eyes hurt. I can't stand the light. They go running to a psychotherapist, and the psychotherapist says, here, have all these drugs. You can have Zoloft, they're all SSRIs. And what they do is they immediately shut your perception down again. So, if we, it's not really optional anymore to not be enlightened, right? If we carry on the way we are, just bumping heads and just running around with egos and stuff, we definitely are going to go extinct. There's no question that we'll all go extinct, and soon. So really, it's kind of our last best hope that people do start becoming more aware. And part of that awareness is the struggle against order. So it's all really a struggle against order and chaos. And the alien cortex is trying to hold everything together. So if you take this gels completely with the macro political scene, because you take something like the Great Reset, and you take something like Klaus Schwab. He's an alien cortex. He wants control of the world. He's got this utopian vision. It's the same old vision that Hitler and everybody Blofeld. He's just this kind of Bond character. But the reason why he's this Bond character is because he represents the alien cortex, and all the Bond characters, they did represent the alien cortex and this kind of mastermind and this vision for everybody. And that vision is order. And the idea is that with order you have control. With control you have this burning flame, and the burning flame can burn forever, because basically it's we just fuel it forever, because nothing can blow it out. There are no winds that can blow it out. The winds of disorder can't blow it out. And so that's the one side of things which I would call psychotic. I mean, not basically sociopathic or otherwise psychopathic. But that yen for order and control is psychopathic. And then opposing that is what these kind of exercises will do, and that's basically make you disassociative and create more disorder. But you have to basically go through each one of them. It's kind of like a journey through the valley of the shadow of death. You have to basically do what the shamans were doing in those caves. They take you through all these archetypes of disorder and order, and really it is a psychic journey that basically leads you through transcending yourself as a person.
But I don't think it's a thing. It's a thing that you should do too much on your own. As you said earlier, sometimes you need to have guidance or someone. And I can see what you mean. Like you could easily fall into something that wouldn't be good. I think if anybody's listening, like, you know, these things have to be.
So okay, let's be clear now. You're not going to fall into anything good. That's
no, good in a way that
okay, you're going to fall into absolute cauldron of fire.
But that's great.
You're going to die.
That is great.
You're gonna die.
That is that's clear. But what I mean is, there's some people who, as you explained a while ago, will suddenly go, whoa, and run back to even worse. For example, a psychiatrist or a priest. And, you know, you just, sometimes I think that, I don't know.
That's the
challenge that guides on these sorts.
That's the danger. If you see what happens is people start on this journey, then they blink, and then they retreat. You can't really stop that, right? Basically, people just have to do that. It's part of the jihad. It's part of the wrestling. But it's what's really dangerous is for people to run to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or something like that, because what they will do is they will, re-entrench you in this kind of limbo, right? It's basically propped up by drugs and things like that. So what I say in my videos and stuff, and what's very important is you have to take a kind of leap of faith, and what that means is you have to push on through it. So basically, it's an effort of courage, but the biggest danger is not that you'd go completely nuts or psychotic or something like you are going to be. The biggest danger is that you pull back and try to get out of that. So it's kind of like you almost make the jump out of the plane, but then in the doorway you turn around and try and get back in the. It's like bungee jumping. I once did a bungee jump in Long Beach, and the guy said, like, the most important thing is that if you don't panic, they said, don't look down, because if you panic, you might turn around and try abort the jump. He said, that's the most dangerous thing. He says that's where people get really fucked up. If anything goes wrong in a bungee jump, it's because they bottle out and they try and go, and they try to turn around and get back on the platform. And the same psychologically is you just have to go like, fuck it, and just go and be reckless. So most people don't want to be reckless. They try and hold on to their ego and try and hold themselves together. And that effort of holding themselves together is what causes all the damage. Now, you can easily run to a conventional Western psychiatrist or psychotherapist or something, and they will help you reconstruct your ego. It won't go well. But you see, what the shamans would do is they push you through all the way. So if you see, like, it's really a kind of thing like, taking ayahuasca and stuff. And so the guys, it's in general, there's nothing really bad that can happen to you. It just feels like it. So if you take ayahuasca or something like that, then you feel like this is the worst thing known to man. You might have a really bad trip. And then they would just talk you down from that. And the reason, they can say anything or do anything, you'll be fine. Basically, people just think, now they say, okay, it's okay, and spirit guide is leading them, and then they go, oh, phew, that's okay. But you can know always it would be fine eventually. But anyway, I'm just saying that just kind of set an expectation, because you raised the thing about people going psychotic in isolation. So now, there is one thing which you can ground yourself at any stage, and that is the first exercise that I gave you, which is basically that relaxation exercise. So what can really screw you up is if you get stuck in your thoughts about what you're doing. So your alien cortex goes spinning around like a top. But if you notice that and start to get a bit of vertigo, start to feel a bit queasy in the stomach, you can cut off those thoughts and immediately get grounded in your senses. So feel your hearing and go outside, look at the sky, and get connected with all the other senses. And so that's the kind of safety belt that you've got is that exercise, to go back to that. Yeah. But this most people that are teaching any kind of esoteric stuff on the internet, they're teaching self-help stuff, and it's all like, this will make your life fantastic. Well, it's not. The stuff they're teaching you isn't going to do any more than what Coca-Cola says. It's basically, they're selling you a commercial product. And they're selling your own endorphins, and they're saying, well, making you spiritual, and you're helping you relax and be de-stressed, and it's all bullshit. It's the same commercial bullshit that's basically making you feel that your life is shitty. So basically, you can't trust any of that self-help stuff. The thing is that it's not supposed to be nice. Everybody thinks, well, I'm going to get involved in spirituality and spiritual development because then I'm going to have everything will go better for me. I'll have a pink halo around my head, and basically nothing will go wrong in my life. Suddenly I'll get rich and people will like me and everything. They say, no, the exact opposite. You're going to be fucked over. Fucked over to oblivion. You say, well, why would I do that? And you say, well, think of the opposite. You just stay a caged chimp all your life. It'll just always have this low-grade, shitty experience that never goes away, and you never get free. So basically, it's eventually people go like, I can't take this anymore. I need liberation. And lockdown is good for that point of view. Because
I think lockdown is a form of liberation. I mean, personally, I think lockdown is a form of liberation, because like the French writer Jean-Paul Sartre used to say, l'enfer, c'est les autres. Hell, it's the others. Used to.
Hell is other people.
Yeah, well, hell is other people.
Well,
so I'm not talking personally, but I'm thinking that when I was going back to this exercise of the layered brain and the emotions as the association, I was thinking that in the light of where we are now, it's even there's kind of a magnifying glass on all this now, because you're not exposed to the normal societal interactions, and we're a bit like in the conditions of a lab experiment at an enormous scale. And what you said about psychosis, I understand very well for a lot of people, but these type of exercises in the light of this extremely magnified, because everything is triggered. Everything, the isolation, the risk of death, the disease, all the little things of everyday life. So whether it's reptilian, fish, mammal, the poor children dying, or the ape, the group is fractured, you can't groom each other. All these things are completely falling apart, kind of. You know what I mean? I also stimulated.
But you see, what everybody's trying to do is trying to ease the pain. And so they're missing a great opportunity that this provides. So if you go on the internet, they'll say, how do you know that you're getting quarantine fever or you're getting stir crazy and stuff like that? And then they give you all these exercises to help you. And you say, no. If they knew more, what they'd be doing is they're saying, like, you feeling fucked up? Well, double down, man, because you need to feel more fucked up. The only danger is you're not feeling fucked up enough. And you go like, I can't take this anymore. Oh, yes, you can. You double down on that fucked upness. Have another 2 months of lockdown, you asshole. There. That's what the government should be doing. And if they did that, basically, after this, basically, it would be kind of like, you see, that cartoon that we did last year early on, I said, like, COVID, I liberate. I wasn't kidding on that, because basically I knew that if people are putting this situation, it is liberational because they see everything for the first time, right? They start to. It's the same thing that I was saying with the last exercise that I mentioned last Sunday, was the exercise of seeing novelty, just doing something novel in your routine, which was the next exercise, but maybe we can talk about that. But it's the same. If you walk down the streets and you see people with masks on, it's a break from the routine, and it forces you to re-examine stuff. So people started doing that. They started doing that in this kind of ephemeral way. In the first lockdown, they said, like, maybe we can go to something new where we spend time with the kids and stuff. And that's all it's in the right direction. It's all kind of fake and rather brittle. It's still right in the alien cortex. You've got to go all the way down to the brainstem before this would really work. But it's kind of like if you get over the sugary thing and how we can, reinvent the world post-COVID, and you say, like, yeah, okay, that's all. Then the sugar gone. It was like another month of lockdown. It was like, oh my God! It's like eventually I'm going to punch the walls. And say, like, yeah, when you get to the stage where you're banging your head against a brick wall and stuff, and then we're really getting somewhere. So it's basically you've got to go right down to the nitty-gritty bone. And so it would be good if we got there, because it would
that's
change
exactly
people.
my point. That's exactly what you're translating. Exactly what I was feeling at the moment. You put it very, very well there.
Well, yeah, the biggest danger is just like with enlightenment is turning back. So it's like Lot's wife, in the Bible.
Yeah.
Is if you turn back, you turn into a pillar of salt. And so that's the big danger, and it's kind of the danger with these lockdowns is if they're not severe enough, and people go back. Everybody wants to go back to normalcy. So, like, if people went back to normalcy, that's the worst outcome possible. Not only can you can't unsee what you've seen during this pandemic. You can't unsee the Capitol riots. You can't unsee the so much was exposed of authority figures in the world. You can't unsee what's been seen. So there's no way people can go back to normalcy, even if the virus disappeared tomorrow. It's challenged everybody psychologically. We've embarked on a psychological journey that we can't really go back to. But that being said, if the lockdown ended too soon, if the virus basically disappeared too quickly or something, it would be a wasted opportunity. People would try get back to normal, and the opportunity to change. We do need a great reset. We absolutely do need a great reset, and people realize that we don't need Klaus Schwab's alien cortex reset. For one thing, the thing with those kind of utopian resets is they're too shallow. So we need a fundamental, visceral, down to the spinal cord fish brain, every single one of the layers, down to the fish brain reset. And then that could be a complete game changer. It could be a black swan. But people really need to get to the end of their tether, and they might in this. You see, if you look at, say, a plague like in 1665, the plague year in London, those guys got right to the end of their tether. I mean, you're talking batshit crazy people. They just couldn't take it anymore. They ran and jumped in the Thames, and they went. Routinely, people would just strip off their clothes and go running naked in the street, and they would just say, okay, that's another one that's lost it. And they would go and burn themselves, and there
that's happening quietly, that's happening quietly in our Western world. The suicides and
the riots and all that. But you see, everybody thinks this is awful, and it's saying, well, not really. Actually, it's actually quite good. From a psychological point of view, it's a rebirth. So it's kind of like you don't want to have an aborted birth. So vaccines and stuff, I think vaccines will make it worse. Actually, I won't go into why, but I think vaccines will make the the virus worse, I think. I'm starting to think that they will create resistant strains, but I've been looking into that. But I think the whole pandemic crisis will get a lot worse.
I don't think the virus needs vaccines to get worse. I think they will spontaneously anyway. As long as people congregate in big numbers and continue to live in stupid big cities and interact in big supermarkets and take planes, the viruses will get more and more dangerous. It's
Yeah,
only
but I do think we might. There's a good chance that we're adding to it, because I think we're breeding. We'll know shortly.
it depends on the type of vaccine you're talking about, because one of them, yes, maybe the other ones are there's 3 different types of vaccines, so they're not all the same way.
There are lots coming, but I mean, it's a different topic. But just quickly, the reason why I think it is they're not really sure why vaccines, breed resistant strains or don't breed resistant strains as much as biotics. But there are various theories, but there seem to be like 3 major factors that lend them to vaccines to be more effective at not breeding resistance. But all 3 factors, I think, are missing out of this current vaccine drive. So I think in particular, I think that the vaccines are too narrow, according to the variants, and that's one of the. if you get that wrong, you're in deep shit, because you're breeding resistant strains.
Statistically, that means that you're going to enable the strains that have mutated to circulate freely. And the other strains are going to be maybe eliminated by the vaccine, but the other ones will have a free run.
Yeah, it's basically a big breeding program for the worst of the worst. Yeah. So, but we'll know one of the for that to be the case, then also the vaccines don't stop transmissibility enough. So they basically only like 50 or so %. I think the best figures that are coming in now, that it stops transmission by about 50%. That's not enough, I don't think.
No.
So I think they're doing tremendous harm with these vaccines, but harm physically. But we're in for a real doozy, I think. But psychologically, it might be the saving of us. If we can be saved, it would be, this could really be a blessing in disguise. But anyway, the reason why it would be a blessing is because it would make a psychological turning point. But it has to be really, really bad. It has to be like an emotional purgation. So people have to go through trauma and catharsis. And I don't think we're deep enough in it. But anyway, it all helps, right? Well, if you're talking about the stuff that we're talking about as spiritual progress and enlightenment, this is the time to do it. Basically, you've never had an easier time. This is a gift. It's kind of like, it would help if you chose it, right? It helps if you decide, I've had it with the world and I'm going off into an ashram to find meaning to life. That is a better way to do it. But if the ashram visits you and say, look, that can work too. It's like a lot of people that were thrown in prison or something, and they're forced to cogitate. For every 1,000 people that the Victorians shoved into prison and were driven nuts, there was probably at least 1 out of 1,000 that actually reached enlightenment for the same experience. So that it would have helped if they had shamans and stuff that could have helped people actually do that. But anyway, it's a well-known thing. I mean, what I'm saying is not all that novel. If you look in, say, V for Vendetta, it's not noticed. I don't think people really notice it because it's not one of the big features of the movie. But the Minkowski sisters are very smart, because if you remember in the end of the movie, Evie is put in prison, and basically tortured and traumatized. And it turns out in the end it is by V. And so basically they were saying in effect that trauma is actually what liberates you. And then in the end, Evie thanks him for doing that, punishing her in that way. But it's well known in all these traditions of this kind of Christ-like passion and pain that you have to go through for liberation. But the dangerous thing is people do it literally, and they go through the same passion and pain, but it plays out in the physical world. And then it has a real horrible result, which is death on literal. But it can play out figuratively and work out into death of your ego. And then that's enlightenment right there. So it's worthwhile that this is happening. It's not, if we needed anything at this juncture with where the climate is at and the methane dragon and where the earth is just about I think we did pass tipping points in 2020, but if we haven't, and we are going to be saved in the nick of time, or at least a portion of people are, it'll need a psychological awakening, because it is a psychological problem. And this is probably a pretty good candidate for actually saving us. Things like solar panels and clever engineering and stuff would be a disaster, because they're psychologically shallow. But yeah, a deep transformation, this pandemic could do it. so look at
maybe we should revive the cartoon that was created last year, because I thought there was a great potential in that little tiny little thing. Now that the situation has evolved and that it's staying with us, it's not, the novelty is not. I think it was. I mean, we could work around it, but I thought that was a very, very good thing. I can't remember.
So too, I think it was before its time, but I think people will see it, if not now, very shortly. Yeah. Yeah. The idea of liberating people by putting them in incarceration is very kind of 1984, newspeak, but it is actually correct. It's like aversion therapy. Basically, it's if you want people to really get over tech civilization, which is what we need to do, the best way is to shove it in their faces, right?
But there is a form of therapy that's used very rarely, because there's very few of them, to serious personality disorders, like, for example, narcissistic personality disorder, which is a nearly irremediable type of condition, and it's called cold therapy, and it's actually re-traumatizing the person. You cannot cure him, but you can make him have a kind of a normal life, and it's based on that. It's based on actually traumatizing the patient, and it works. It's called cold therapy. It's actually really what it is, because it's extremely hard, and it's the only thing that can work on these type of people.
Yeah, they used to do these therapies before they just turned to pharmaceuticals. Basically, if you wound up in the snake pit or something in Bedlam, they would do things like cold therapy. But
you can't use pharmaceuticals for personality disorders, you see. So that's why that doesn't work. So that's why those methods have been developed.
But they don't do it anymore, right? That was.
Oh yeah, well, cold therapy is actually a recent thing. It's re-traumatizing people with stress. That type of personality disorder can enable them to not be as destructive. Their core will never be changed, because that's things that happen at a very young age. But they can not end up by killing themselves or killing somebody around them or being too self-destructive, and they can focus on a task that they like, and without having too much problems. But it's the basic. What's interesting is that they're using exactly what you say. They traumatizing them, re-traumatizing until the response is different. The response is not. Anyway, it's not the subject of our talk, but it's.
Oh no, it is fun. I'm kind of intrigued. So I think they must be rediscovering this, because they used to do this in the 1920s, and
all right.
I believe it's malpractice now. I didn't know that they were doing it.
No, it's because it's done on one-to-one therapy. It's not something that's done in hospitals or anything. It's along with a therapist.
It used to in mental hospitals.
Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. It was done
think.
for other conditions. It was not done for that specific condition, which is narcissistic personality disorder, which is a very special kind of, there's only 1% of people who have that, I think, or less. So it's not something very less, I think. So it's not very, but it is that method.
So yeah, I've got it right, haven't I? That aversion therapy is where you give somebody the more, like to get somebody off smoking or something. You make them smoke